What if I told you the entire Pacific War was decided in just 5 minutes? Not by generals, not by politicians, but by 50 American pilots diving straight into hell. Lieutenant Commander Mitsuo Fuchida stood frozen on the deck of the Akagi, Japan's mightiest warship, as flames swallowed the sky. Just hours ago he'd been sipping tea, laughing with admirals, certain of victory. Now his flagship, the crown jewel of the Imperial Navy, was a funeral pyre. Smoke choked the air. Metal screamed as it twisted. Men ran not to fight, but to survive. In those minutes, Fuchida realized something no Japanese officer dared say aloud. We didn't just lose a battle. We lost the war. And it all happened because they underestimated the one thing America had more of than ships, more than planes, more than bullets: willpower. 3 hours earlier, everything was perfect. Inside the war room of the Akagi, Admiral Nagumo smiled, rare for a man who'd led the Pearl Harbor strike. Maps were spread, plans locked. The Americans, he said calmly, will do exactly what we expect. Captain Genda, the genius behind Pearl Harbor, nodded. Their pilots? Inexperienced. Their carriers? Primitive. They won't even show up. The room agreed. Why wouldn't they? For 6 months, Japan had ruled the Pacific like gods. 0 fighters danced in the sky. Carriers struck like lightning. No enemy fleet had touched them, not one. They believed, truly believed, that spirit, discipline, and skill made them unbeatable. They were wrong. What they didn't know? America had already broken their codes. While Nagumo toasted victory, American admirals were moving carriers into position, not to defend Midway, but to ambush them, and not with 2 carriers, but 3, including the Yorktown, a ship the Japanese swore would take months to repair. America fixed it in 48 hours, held together, as its captain joked, with chewing gum and hope. That ship, that miracle, would change everything. Dawn, June 4th, the Japanese launched their first strike on Midway. Nagumo held back half his planes, armed with torpedoes, just in case Americans showed up. Smart, flexible, textbook perfect. Then, a scout plane crackled over the radio. Enemy ships, possibly a carrier. Panic, confusion. Should they attack the island? Or the fleet? Nagumo hesitated, ordered the reserve planes rearmed, from torpedoes to bombs, then changed his mind. Back to torpedoes. The decks became chaos, fuel hoses snaking everywhere, bombs stacked like firewood, returning planes clogging the runway. They were caught, in the worst possible moment, vulnerable, exposed, waiting, and then, from 18,000 feet, they came. First, the torpedo bombers, slow, old, flying straight into death. Wave after wave. 37 planes, 35 shot down, 0 hits. From the bridge, Nagumo watched, almost impressed. Courage, one, he murmured, cannot beat skill. He didn't realize those doomed pilots weren't trying to win. They were trying to distract. They pulled every Japanese fighter down to sea level, leaving the sky above the carriers empty. And that's when the dive bombers arrived. No warning, no fanfare, just 50 planes screaming down like hawks. Lieutenant Richard Best, eyes locked on the Akagi, pushed his nose down. This, he whispered, is for Pearl Harbor. His bomb hit dead center, one, then another. Then another, Kaga, Soryu, Akagi, all in 5 minutes, 5 minutes. Decks exploded. Fuel ignited. Bombs cooked off. The greatest carrier force in the world. Burning, sinking, screaming. Fuchida, recovering from surgery in the sickbay, dragged himself to the deck. What he saw broke him. The Akagi, proud, mighty, invincible, now a corpse. No planes could take off. No guns could fire. Just fire and silence. By sunset, 3 carriers were gone. The 4th, hear you, fought back. Damaged the Yorktown, then sank too. Japan lost 4 carriers, 250 planes, 2,000 men, including pilots who'd fought since China. America lost 1 carrier, 1 destroyer, 147 planes, a massacre. A miracle, a turning point. Back in Tokyo, the admirals sat in silence. Yamamoto, the mastermind, stared at the map. We have awakened a sleeping giant, he'd said after Pearl Harbor. Now he saw it happening. His chief of staff wrote in his diary, "This is not a battle lost. This is the war lost." They'd believed America was soft, that their factories were slow, that their pilots were cowards. Midway proved them wrong, on every count. The real tragedy? Japan couldn't recover. Their best pilots? Dead. And they had no system to train new ones. America? Opened 7 new flight schools. Trained 20,000 pilots a year? Japan, new pilots got 300 hours. Americans? 450. By 1944, the student was beating the teacher. And the ships? America launched 9 new carriers in 18 months. Japan, 3 total. The math was brutal. The outcome? Inevitable. Nagumo, once a hero, if it was broken, reassigned, humiliated. When Saipan fell in 1944, he put a pistol to his head. His last words? Midway was the beginning of the end. I go to apologize to our fallen. Genda, the proud tactician, begged for reform. We must change everything, he wrote. The Americans adapt. We must too, or die. Too late, Fuchida survived, lived to see Hiroshima, saw his country surrender. In his memoirs, he wrote, "At Midway, we didn't just lose ships. We lost our illusion. We thought spirit could beat steel. We were wrong. America didn't win with magic. They won with factories, with teamwork, with men who flew into fire, so others could live. The admirals who toasted American carriers the night before the battle, most never saw the war's end. Those who did watched from shore as American carriers, 28 of them, sailed off Japan's coast, bombing cities to ash, the irony crushing. Midway wasn't luck. It wasn't fate. It was the moment arrogance met reality, and reality won. 5 minutes, 50 men, 1 decision, and an empire began to fall. He didn't cry when his friends died, didn't cry when his ship sank, didn't cry in prison. But the moment he bit into that hamburger, he sobbed like a child, not from hunger, not from pain, but from something far worse, hope. Private Kenji Yamada didn't know what a hamburger was. Not really. He'd heard the word, whispered by guards, scrawled on mess hall chalkboards, but in his mind, it was just another American mystery. Like baseball, like jazz, like Coca-Cola fizzing in a glass bottle, like laughter trapped in sugar. So when the tray slid toward him, soft bun, thick patty, grease glistening, he didn't reach for it. He stared like it might bite back. Around him, men poked at the lettuce, sniffed the meat. One soldier even bowed to his plate, half joking, half praying, before lifting the bun. Yamada, he just froze. His fingers hovered. His throat tightened. He thought of his little sister, back in Osaka, who hadn't tasted meat since she was 5. He thought of his mother, boiling tree bark into soup, calling it stew to make it sound like a meal. And now here he was, enemy, prisoner, defeated, holding a feast. He took the first bite, and broke, not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly. Tears rolled down his cheeks before he even swallowed. The meat was soft, the bread warm, the grease rich, too rich. It didn't taste like food. It tasted like forgiveness, like the world hadn't ended, like maybe, just maybe, he could still be human. He didn't finish it. Couldn't. He wrapped the rest in a napkin, carefully, reverently, and tucked it into his pocket. That night under his bunk, he smoothed the greasy paper flat, folded it, pressed it between the pages of his diary, like a relic, like a prayer, like proof. That kindness existed, even here, even now. The guards noticed. Of course they did. Men don't cry over sandwiches unless something inside them has cracked open. Corporal Dave Riley, 19, from Iowa, never fired a shot in anger, watched Yamada from across the mess hall. Didn't laugh, didn't point, just nodded. Later, he slid another burger onto Yamada's tray. No words, just a shrug. Eat it or don't, your choice. Yamada ate it, slowly, deliberately, like he was memorizing every bite. And this time, he didn't cry. He smiled, just a little, just for a second. But Riley saw it, and something in him cracked open too. War wasn't supposed to feel like this. Enemies weren't supposed to share meals. But here, in this strange sun-baked camp, the lines blurred, the rules bent, and humanity? It slipped through the cracks, one burger at a time. Sergeant Hajime Kondo saw it too. He didn't eat his burger that day. Couldn't, not yet. He watched Yamada, watched the way his shoulders relaxed, the way his eyes lost that hunted look. Kondo had spent 3 years in Burma, eating rats, drinking mud, watching boys younger than his own son bleed out in the dirt. He'd told himself, I will never be soft. I will never forget who I am. But watching Yamada smile over a piece of meat, something in him wavered. That night he wrote in his diary, "If a hamburger can make a soldier weep, what else have we been wrong about?" He didn't eat his burger the next day either, or the day after. But on the third morning, he unwrapped it, took a bite, and didn't look away when the tears came. The wrappers became treasures. Not just Yamada's, others too. Men saved napkins stained with ketchup, bottle caps from Coke, even crusts of bread wrapped in cloth hidden in socks, tucked under mattresses, not because they were hungry, but because they were afraid. Afraid this wouldn't last. Afraid they'd wake up and it would all be gone. The food, the kindness, the quiet. Private Shiro Abe pressed a ketchup-stained napkin between two sheets of wax paper. Wrote on it, "First taste of sweetness, August 12th, 1945. He mailed it home. Somehow, it made it through censors, and his mother kept it in a wooden box beside her bed. For years, for decades, until the day she died, her fingers still brushing the stain like it was a holy thing. Lieutenant Masaru Nakamura didn't save a wrapper. He saved something else. The sound. The first time he heard an American laugh while eating, really laugh, head thrown back, belly shaking, he froze. Not from fear, from wonder. In Japan, meals were silent, sacred. You ate to survive, not to enjoy. But here, laughter rang through the mess hall like music. Nakamura started writing it down. Not the words, the sounds. Clatter of trays, crunch of lettuce, fizz of soda, laughter, deep, easy, unafraid. He read the list every night, like a spell, like a prayer, like proof. That joy still existed, even in war, even in prison, even in defeat. Captain Takashi, the oldest in the barracks, didn't laugh, didn't cry, didn't save wrappers. He saved the silence. The moment after the meal, when the trays were cleared, when the guards wandered off, when the men sat, full, quiet, almost peaceful, he called it the ceasefire. Not between armies, between hunger and hope, between pride and survival, between the men they were and the men they might become. He wrote in his diary, "In Japan, we measured time in bombs and burials. Here we measure it in bites, in sips, in silence. And somehow, it feels longer, deeper, truer." He didn't know it yet, but he was right. The war was ending, not with a bang, but with a breath, a sigh, a full stomach. By 1946, Yamada was back in Japan. Osaka, ruins, hunger, ash. He worked 12-hour days hauling rubble, ate rice mixed with sawdust, drank water from broken pipes. But every night, he took out the wrapper, smoothed it, rid the grease stains like a map, like a promise, like a memory of a world where food wasn't fear, it was freedom. His daughter found it when she was 10. "What's this, Papa?" she asked. He didn't answer, just smiled. And for the first time since the war, he didn't flinch when she hugged him. He died in 2005, 82 years old. They found the wrapper in his wallet, folded, faded, still greasy. His daughter framed it, hung it in her kitchen, next to a photo of him, young in uniform, eyes hollow, and next to that, a McDonald's Happy Meal box, her son's favorite, full circle, not with bombs, but with burgers. Profile Quen 3 Max Preview 7:25 PM समझम। मैं इस स्टोरी को 4000 कैरेक्टर्स में कंप्लीट एंडिंग के साथ लिख कर देता हूँ। सेम इमोशनल ह्यूमन curiosity driven YouTube safe style. No fluff, no filler, just pure powerful closure. He carried it for 60 years, not for memory, not for pride, but because letting go would mean admitting the war had won. Private Kenji Yamada's daughter found the bottle cap in his coat pocket the day he died. Not in a box, not in a drawer, in his pocket. Like he'd just come back from camp. Like the war hadn't ended, it had just paused. The cap was rusted, bent, faded red script barely visible. But she knew what it was. Everyone in the family did. Papa's treasure, her mother used to say. Don't touch it. Don't ask. She held it in her palm now, cold, small, impossibly heavy. Why carry this thing for 6 decades? She didn't understand, not yet. At Camp Shelby, 1945, that cap was nothing, just metal, just trash, just the lid of a Coca-Cola bottle Sergeant Yamada had sipped slowly, like it was medicine, not soda. He'd saved it because it was the first thing he'd ever chosen, not rationed, not stolen, not begged for, chosen. He'd pressed it into his diary that night, next to the hamburger wrapper, next to a sketch of the mess hall, next to a list of names, friends who never made it home. The cap wasn't about taste. It was about control. In a world where he'd been stripped of everything, rank, weapon, dignity, this tiny circle of metal, it was his, and no one could take it. Back in Osaka, 1946, it became a secret. He hid it in a tin box under the floorboards. Told no one. Not his wife. Not his children. Not even when they starved. Not even when American aid trucks rolled through the streets handing out chocolate and powdered milk. He took the food, fed his family. But the cap? He kept it hidden. Because accepting charity was survival. Keeping the cap? That was surrender. And he wasn't ready to surrender. Not yet. Japan was rising. Factories hummed. Trains ran. Coca-Cola ads glowed on street corners. His son pointed at one. "Papa, can we try it?" Yamada froze, nodded, bought 2 bottles. Watched his boy gulp it down, laughing, sticky, alive. He sipped his slowly. The fizz was the same, the sweetness identical, but it tasted different, hollow, like a song sung by someone who didn't know the words. That night he dug up the tin box, compared the old cap to the new one. Same shape, same logo, but his? Heavier, darker, real. He put it back under the floor, didn't tell his son. His wife found the box while cleaning. "Kenji," she said, voice soft, "why do you keep this?" He didn't answer, just took it from her. Held it tight. She never asked again. But he saw the hurt in her eyes. The confusion. We have food now. We have peace. Why hold on to prison? He didn't have an answer. Not one she'd understand. How do you explain that some cages don't have bars? That some wars don't end with treaties? That some men carry their battlefields in their pockets? Because letting go feels like dying all over again? His grandson found the cap. 12 years old, curious. "Grandpa, what's this?" Yamada hesitated. "Then," he told him, "not the whole story. Just enough. This," he said, voice cracking, "is what freedom tastes like." The boy didn't understand. Not really. But he nodded, serious, like he'd been given a sacred thing. He didn't touch it again. But sometimes Yamada caught him staring at the tin box, like he was memorizing its shape, its weight, its silence. The day Yamada died, his daughter found the cap in his pocket. She cried, not because he was gone, but because he'd never let go. Not really. She took it to a jeweler, had it cleaned, polished, set in glass, hung it on her wall, next to his medals, next to his photo, next to a McDonald's napkin her son had scribbled on. Full circle. Not with speeches, not with flags, but with a bottle cap, a burger wrapper, a child's drawing. The war was over. Finally, truly, not because the guns fell silent, but because the next generation didn't need to carry the weight. So tell me, if you were Yamada, would you have kept the cap? Or thrown it away? Would you have let your children see it? Or buried it forever? Drop your answer below. And if this story made your heart ache, share it, because sometimes the smallest things hold the heaviest truths and the longest wars, and not with victory, but with peace.